Hey, Big D, wait, were we live? Oh, we're not live. We're on PTO. Hey, it's Christmas break, everybody. Merry Christmas. We from the Festool Live crew hope you have a great holiday system. Merry Christmas. Enjoy the best of series following this.
In other words, the question has always been, I have a board that is less than the width of, and I'll do this in both metric and imperial, 185 millimeter or 7 1/4. It's less than that. In other words, people used to ask all the time when they came to cabinet class, right, is how do you rip your 50 millimeter stock out of a 5.5-inch board, which I get at a big box? How do I rip narrow stock, okay, for anything that is less than the width of this? And people would ask, and the other way of asking this question is, hey, I'm setting up shop, do I need a table saw? Well, everybody would always say in the early years at Festool, okay, we would, oh yeah, you need a table saw to rip narrow stock. Not necessarily, until we came out with the parallel guides, and I'll cover that. I covered it in episode 26. There's several killer videos online about it, okay? So as I step through this, I'll actually step through. I got these pine boards. I'm just going to give you some measurements so you can see them. It's a little more than 7 1/4, but by the time I'm done ripping these, I'll be balancing, or what you think you have to balance, okay, on a narrow piece. So just pay attention. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I like to straight line rip this board before I start ripping it in 50 millimeter increments. As I set up, you know what this is. I've covered it before. I'll probably cover it again next year. This is called a limit stop. I actually use it. My buddy Marvin showed me this. I actually use it to give me a quick reference for a cut, and it's about 6 millimeter offset. Okay, this goes on the rail, so when you're plunge cutting, but I use it just like this. And actually, I'm going to move my rail ever so slightly so you guys get a better view. I'm just going to reset it really quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this. Okay? And as I clamp this, okay, watch. Chris, you're going to come in here. Now, you can clamp this to the material, but I'm actually going to clamp this right here also to the MFT. See that? Okay? That way there, the board doesn't move as I'm cutting. And I'm going to come over here. Now, there's a lot of people over the years that have come up to me and go, do you always clamp it? I go, no. But when I'm straight line ripping, I always try, especially when I'm doing some really, this is pine, this is Eastern white pine, but when I'm straight line lipping, Benny, did you hear that? I'm straight line lipping. Straight line ripping, I'm going to use clamps, okay? And I'm just going to put it right on here. And now this one, I'm just going to clamp right to the board. Just like that. So there's a little clamping technique for you that I like to use. Cool. Everything cool, Big D? Beautiful. Okay. So I set my depth. I've showed you how to do that in previous videos. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I always want to make sure, look, that when I start the saw, I'm forward of the cut. I don't want to start into here. Okay? And I'm just going to start it. And I'm going to make my cut. And I'll tell you what, man, that dust extraction is also exceptional. You get about 96% on there. Okay, let's just throw that away. We're going to use some fire pit wood there. Okay, next, I'm going to take my clamps off. And I want to, hopefully we can zoom in on this, everybody. Big D, maybe you can get it from overhead. Look at this cut. There's not a single saw blade mark on there. It's exceptional, and that's a perfect jointed board. So I always tell people when they're buying the Festool track saw, and the only thing you use a jointer for in your shop is to get a jointed board on 3/4 or 1 inch, all right, or wait a minute, 20 millimeter or 25 millimeter. Okay, guess what? The track saw is the perfect straight line ripping tool to join boards for panels. Okay, now I have this board here, and I want to get consistent, repetitive 50 millimeter rips, 2-inch rips. How do you do that with the Festool system? Well, I think you already know, because in episode 26 I showed you how to calibrate and how to set up the parallel guides. Well, I have them set up already. I was going through this yesterday, and I was thinking how many times I've shown this to people over the years, and I almost want to say, oh, I should have started to write down how many times I've received this question. Because sometimes when you think, and if you're a woodworker out there, and you've been doing it for a long time, and you think people, it's obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious. So, as I always say, common sense is not always so common. All right? So as I set this up, and you'll see as I start to rip this, you're going to notice how this board, look, especially when I have this set, look, it's set at 50 millimeters. See that? That cursor, not on the front, but to the cursor, the center. It's set at 50. And same thing with this one. This, once it has a tendency to wobble. So what I like to do, and you know what? I feel like I'm kind of like in that that movie one time I saw that. What state is Missouri, Minnie? The show me state, right?
Right.
Okay, so show me. Sometimes I tell people about things, and then all of a sudden I go, well, wait a minute, let me just show you how it's done. Okay, I've talked through this several times, but I want to show you what I do. I call it backing the board. And this one's for you, Russell, if you're watching. I know you're at the dentist right now, because I know you asked me not too long ago. See this? Watch. See how this is nice and even? Okay, it's the same thickness as the material I'm going to rip. I call it, or we call it, backing the board. See how stable that is now? Now I take it a step further, because I'm going to do a couple rips on this. I'll take it like this, and I'll lock the board in. See how I have it up against these stops? You can use traditional dogs as well. But I want to get it as stable as possible. So what I'll do is I'll take it a step further, and I'll clamp that right there. Just making sure that that's up against there, and that one's up against there, and I don't kill it, but I put a little bit of pressure. Okay, so let's rip one, and then I'll rip another one, and you'll see how consistent these are. Woo! See how I started forward of the cut? And I'll just make that rip, making sure I'm behind it. So there's the first one. Now, as you rip this, see how I save that? Just like that. I can actually take that, and as I'm going, yeah, I got plenty of support here, but what if I'm still just on that narrow board? I can actually take this and shove this under the board as I'm cutting. So hopefully you're all following this, but as I cut, I put this underneath and keep rotating it through. That way there I can get all these widths out of here exactly the same. So let's make another one. I'm just going to actually take this so you guys can see it. And I'm going to back it just like this. I'll take it like this. I'll lock it in, and then I'll make sure I'm up against here. And you're going to see how these are very, very accurate and consistent. And look how simple this is. It's a simple setup. Once again, check and make the cut. And I'm just going to take that out. I'll show you how this works, just like this. And you'll see even Steven all the way through. And that's how you get perfect 50 millimeter rips all the way through. You know what this is, but I want to show you how I do this. I just take my piece like this. See this? Okay, and I know it's 32 millimeter. Okay, but this is an easy way to get a good gauge on it. Okay? And then I'm going to take it just like this. I'm actually going to take this board, bring it in here like this, so you guys can see the setup of this. Okay? And I'm going to take my parallel edge guides here. Woohoo! All right. Now, I got to set those up because I'm not taking 50 millimeter stock. I'm doing 32 millimeter stock. So what I have to do, and I'm going to come in here, Chris, I'm going to get right in front of you. And I'm going to take this, because I know it's 32 millimeter. I already know that. And I'm going to bring it right here to 32, and I'm going to bring my cursor in just like this, making sure everything's tight on here. It is. Okay, and bring it right to this 30, 31, 32, and I'll bring my cursor right in just like that. So this will allow you to get a really good square turning blank. And that's what we did for those guys who had that lathe company. And they said, man, I never thought you could do that with the Festool system. It's just understanding, like, look how I set this up off the corner. Okay? It's just understanding a few nuances here. This is cutting like butter. It's absolutely amazing. Okay? And I always, this is the center of my blade, or the rough center. I always push it all the way so the blade is fully cut, fully through the material. And this is the other thing I want you to see. This is 6/4, 32 millimeter maple, and it not a saw blade mark in there. And if I need to make another cut, I would take this, bring it in just like this, and look, see how, whoopsie, see how repetitive that is? Let me just, there you go. And I can just bring it right in there and make that other cut just like that. In episode 11, I showed you how to do this butt joint. I also did a through joint for a center panel. And I go through the process of showing you how to do these connectors, how to drill out the hole, how to put the holders in. And basically, this is it right here. I showed you how to make one of these. Okay? But today, I'm going to drill or mortise with the Domino an additional piece or additional mortise here to accept the 8 by 35. And that's where I think I was confusing in the episode 11. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that mortise. And hey, Minnie, I got a quick question before I go, or before I do it. What is half of 300?
Yesterday it was 150.
You're really good at metric. Okay, so let's get my Vaxis going. All right. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I have the connectors in here. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that over the course of the year and a half we've been doing Festool Live from that episode 11 that people have asked. And I've done them on Festool Sedge. I've done them here and there with videos, but I want to cover it in this episode. Okay? So you'll see a lot of tips and tricks on the connectors as I do this. So I'm going to put this on here like this. I'm all set. I want to make sure I'm really good on my bracket. Okay? Now, there's two numbers when you're doing connectors that you got to remember, 15 and 28. Those are your plunge depths. Almost every mortise I make today will be in a tight scenario. There's one time I'm going to do loose, and you'll understand why when I'm finished today. So today, I'm going to plunge here. I marked a line, and I will always reference from the front edge 150 millimeters. That's half of 300. This is a 300 millimeter wide cabinet. Okay? I'm going to set my plunge depth at 28, and everything works off a 20 millimeter. And I set my gauge block here. And it's kind of a little bit of review with the Domino as well. In the window is always the thickness of the material. And I love using the gauge block because it's a referenced piece. I don't like using my eye. If I use my eye, and okay, so I'll go back to more about the Domino stuff I've taught in Festool Live, is when I'm using the precision of the machine, I usually do them tight. If I'm using my eye, I'll tell you what, I'm usually doing what? Going into the loose setting. You'll see that in a few minutes. So I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to take my plate, put it right on here. And Chris, you can come in here and grab this. Right there on the Domino. That's my line. That's my center line. I'm going to do it in tight. And when I do this, I always plunge from the back of the machine. Okay? So there's one. I'm just going to flip it over. And there we go. I could have kept it running. Okay? And I'm going to bring it right in and plunge at a steady rate. That's all when I'm using the Domino. Okay, good. So I'm just going to hang that up here for now. Okay. Now, the other thing I noticed while I was doing this, you'll see, those little screws were dropping out. So I'm going to put those screws in there. These little, these little grub screws here, they just go in. And remember, on the Domino, on these little 3 millimeter screws, right? Hexes, look at that. See how that's tapered right there? It's conical. So that brings you in and draws the piece together, or that center panel. So I'm going to put those in. The little vibration of the machine kind of had those eke out on me, so there we go. Now I'm going to grab this piece. Okay, I've already done one side, so I want to talk through how I'm going to do this. And these are through holes, okay, because that's a center panel. I don't want to go from one side in and then the other side in. I want to go all the way through. I want to only punch it once with the LR32. So that's why you use the spear point bit, 5mm with the LR32. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to take this pod, because look, that's right in the middle, and I can get better gripping with the Vaxis. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to put this in. Always make sure with the Vaxis you put it in so this doesn't lift out. That little pin gets right in the groove. Okay, so I'll take this like this, and I'm just going to set it on here like this. Whoopsie, I'm going to tilt it just a hair. There we go, so I get a better grip, and then bring it up. So now I'm ready to go. Okay, let me grab my Domino. And for this one, I'm going to plunge all the way through. But yeah, I can leave it set at 28, but what I like to do is set it at 20, so I'm just going through ever so slightly. All right, so I'll take this and I'll reset my plunge depth to 20. I just pull that forward and set it at 20, okay? But I am gonna go through the entire 18mm plywood. Okay. Hey, Minnie, what's half of 18?
Oh, 9.
Okay, see, you're really good at metric. So I got some stuff written here. All right, I have here 37. I have here plate. I did this in episode 11, but I want to cover it today so you understand. When I say plate, I'm talking about this part right here. And from the edge of the plate, okay, to the center of the bit is, woohoo, 65mm. Okay, I scribed the line in the middle of this. And half of 300, Minnie?
150.
She's really good at this metric stuff. And I'm also got another number here, 37. Guess what? You see the flap right there? From the flap to the center of the bit, and you can see it right here because I'm going to use this reference on the support bracket, is 37mm. So I'm going to take this like this, look. I'm going to take it like this, and look what my pressure is on this. It's right up against here. And when I turn it on, I'm going to pinch it on and make the mortise. Okay? So there's my first through hole. I'm going to come over here and use the edge of the plate. Okay, now come here over here, Chris, for that center line. Okay, I'm going to use this center line here, but I'm going to be using my eye. The only thing I care about is shear strength. You'll understand this in a minute. So I'm going to make it loose. And there's a reason I do this. It's for alignment. And that gives me, see, these two are tight. This gives me an extra 3mm on each side. So I'm going to take this like this. I'm going to set it up, and I want to show you how I put these in. This is 8mm thick, and I want you to notice this. On here, there's a little flange. Okay, so when I put this in here like this, there's a flange on this side as well. And this was a question that came up after that first Domino connector. I think had we just come out with them? Nah, it had been a year. And people ask all the time about this, and there's a little bit of thick. So I'm going to take it, and I'm going to take it like this. And you see these two recesses here? That's where that little conical hex screw grabs and finds its equilibrium in the middle. But these have to turn inside. So I tighten them up, and then I turn them inside. I'll set this one up nice and easy. Okay, so if there's a little flange here, and I'm taking one of these boards and butting it up against there might be a slight standoff, just a slight standoff. So someone emailed me once, and I shot a video of it. And this is what I do. You see these holders right there? They hold the cross anchors in there like this. Okay, and you can take these out because there's a little notch. You can use a pick to take them out when you're finishing your cabinet. But what I like to do, and you'll see as we put this cabinet together, I like to take a Domino and just tap them in so slightly so this little standoff falls right inside that mortise. So there's the reason worth watching episode number 75 today. Okay, so this one's all set. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take this, and I'm going to show you why I build like this. Okay, so say you have a cabinet like this inside your truck or whatever, your van, and you will say, okay, I love this. I got adjustable shelves here. I just love it. But man, I want to add another one or another one so you can expand the system. It's simple, and I'll show you how. I'm just going to take it like this, and I'm going to loosen these screws. So I'm going to take this off. This is my end panel. I'm going to leave this right here. Make sure you remember where I put that, Derek. So this plywood is 18 millimeter. So many. You told me that it was 9 millimeter, half of 18, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to tell you. I did this mortise in here, what, 28 millimeter. Okay? If I did it with a regular domino that was an 8x40, it would, in the middle, push the panels away. So we had to come out with a shorter domino. We didn't want you to have to cut all your dominoes down, right? So if I do the math, and I did this, look. If I push this in here like this, I measured from here to here 28 millimeters, and you'll see it go in. See that? Right to the line. Did you catch that? Okay, and I'm going to do it on this one, just like this. Okay? Now, Minnie, what's 7 and 7?
14 and 3.
That was good. So I'm going to take it like this. I'm going to line it up like this. I'm going to bring it right in. Practice makes perfect, Sedge. There we go. I think I got it all right in there. Okay, so there's the first one. So I'm just going to take this and tighten it up now. Making sure that front edge is nice and tight, and you'll see it draw right in. Look at that. Perfect butt joint. This one lines up with your groove that I've already grooved for your back. Okay, and then I'm going to grab another one. I'm going to put this one on. Now, when I put this in, that 7 millimeter will not hit that other 7 millimeter. And I've expanded my cabinet so daggone quick, it's ridiculous. So as I do this, you like this, Min?
Yes.
I know you would. Minnie always comes up to me. She goes, well, not every time, but she comes up to me and says, you know, I learned a lot on that one, Sedge. And I'm glad. Oh, so there we go. Okay, so I have that. I'm not going to tighten these screws because I want to show you one more application. I'm going to take it and turn it. And we've taken it from 2 bay to 3 bay just like that. Now, I talked about these, okay, to utilize. These are the pins that I showed you, but they go into either a wedge anchor or they go through the through panel. But what if we want to add just one fixed shelf here? Okay, and let me show you a couple of tips and tricks on that I've learned over time. I'm going to take this top off. Now, you can put an adjustable shelf. That's easy. But the nice thing about all this hardware is you can use a CXS or any drill. Okay, see that coarse thread? I'm going to throw it right in there. Oopsie, as long as it's in forward. Okay, just like this. And I'm going to turn it back to make sure that taper is facing down, because I don't want anybody to see on my shelf my connectors. And I'll take another one, and I'll put it right here. Yes, I have them pre-marked, because I didn't want to have to count on camera. You know how bad I am at counting, Minnie. Big D, how's this looking? Good? Okay. So I'm going to turn that in, and then I'm going to take this one, and hopefully I don't get too much behind there. I'm going to take 2 more of these, oopsie, and put them in here. Just like this. Get it in there like this. See that coarse thread? That goes into your existing 32 millimeter spacing holes, your system holes, we call them. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and this is going to go like this. So I need these turned back like this. I'm always going, that's my front, that's my back. So I'm going to set that like this. And now let's talk about the shelf. Here's the shelf we just made, and it's got that groove. But what I did is I wanted to butt up against what? The back. So I ripped that off with my track saw. Okay, I just lined up my rail right on there and ripped it so it's a perfect fit. And now I can take that and get it right in there like this. Look, and I'll tighten that up. Chris, come on over here so you can see this. I'll just tighten it up like this. Perfect. Right back here. Okay, there we go. There we go. And then what I'll do Drum roll, please. I'll take this like this. Now here's where you got to be a little bit careful because you got so many things happening. Okay, you got your pins going in here. Okay, all of them. Okay, making sure they're all turned correctly, which I'm double checking. Okay, they're starting to fall in, but you also have the back to get in the groove of this. So when you do this, there you go. There you go. Let's do a couple of tightens, and we'll stand it up here in a minute. Okay, I'll just tighten a couple of these screws. I'll get this one back here. It all pulls together nicely, and you'll see it. I love this system. Everything comes together perfectly flush. If you have to move it a little, you can move it a little to get that front edge. But everybody check this out. We now have, and now you can see how expandable this system is, right?